Yeah, I mean, it does feel like that when you're taking psychedelics, right? It feels like the moment I'm tapping into it, so profound. I'm getting the code. God himself is talking to me. I see beyond the illusions. And then 3 days later, you come back and you're back to your life. You're back to your job. You're back home. And it's like you're exactly the same, right? And so those profound effects, you would think they would last forever, but they don't. It's almost as if it's a fabricated illusion for you to step into, because you always need to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, and it's not to say that they don't have profound effects that can't last a long time, but yeah, it does wear off, and while you're on them, you do feel like you're tapping into some unknown world, or like you said, like God is talking directly to me, and maybe that is happening, but I don't know. It's kind of impossible to prove. It's it's just a feeling and a knowing. Um, and I'm not trying to say that there aren't any positive effects from using psychedelics because I mean, I think they definitely helped shape me in some ways, but I think they also definitely did some harm that maybe I didn't want to look at until I stopped using them. And then once you kind of get out of that, you can see a little bit clearer what was actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, the psychedelics, they kind of give you that real sense that they're doing something for you, and it feels that way in the moment, but then you do see like, "Oh, I was just, like, kinda running away from a certain reality or a certain truth and just chasing the prettier vision." I mean, I've
Yeah.
done psychedelics a number of times now, and there are things that I've learned, and I don't think I could have learned them any other way. But I also know that the times I was doing them, I was completely ungrounded, unhinged, crazy, and that was almost the recipe needed to actually foster in those insights. But after a while, you just can't keep looping in that forever. So it's been about 2 years now since I haven't taken a single one. And even marijuana, it's the last time I smoked that, I don't know. Probably the same 2 years. Or maybe one time somewhere within there, but, like, it was 1 or 2 times, and it was CBD.
Um, yeah, sort of similar to me. I feel like for me, it started off with cannabis in high school. I would consider that as psychedelic because I just remember like the first time I ever smoked weed, just like pretty much tripping, like being in my friend's car and just like felt like we were riding a wave in the ocean and then just like the ocean and space. I mean, it was crazy. And that definitely opened up my mind to like a new realm of consciousness that I didn't know existed. And I don't know if I would have got there any other way. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. So I'm grateful for those experiences, but then it just became like a habit where it just became a a crutch and like abusing it heavily. And then with psychedelics, yeah, started using them in college, and you just it, people say they're not addictive, and they aren't in a sense, but in a way they are, because you're like chasing that high again. You're like, oh my god, that was so amazing. I've never felt anything like that before. I've never like tapped into those different parts of my mind, like, I wanna go back there, and then you just, like, do it again and again and again, and like you said, it's you kinda start looping, but you're not realizing you're looping because 'cause you're just like, "Oh, I like this so much, and I'm learning," but I think Alan Watts said it's like, once you get the message, you hang up the phone. I don't know, I feel like there's only so many messages you can get before it's the same message over and over again, and then you're just kinda lying to yourself, and using it as a form of escapism, which I think a lot of people do, and they don't wanna admit to themselves because they're putting this whatever it is, whatever psychedelic is on a pedestal.
I think it's like one of the first ways that people can tangibly feel the effects of like changing into a different dimension. Like you smoke weed or something and like in 30 minutes you're in a different mental energetic headspace. So I mean in like even in a spiritual context, everyone's trying to get to that point where they can kind of concentrate their energy, change and direct their life in a new direction from like a new place. And when you can just bypass that and just, hit a joint or pop a tab or eat a mushroom, it's like it almost gives you the sense that you're fulfilling that spiritual destiny and you've found a hack around it, you've made it easier, and it gives you the side effects of increasing your vibration or whatever. But it doesn't actually really do it. It just kind of gives you an entrance into what that field is like. It's not really, it's almost undeserving in a lot of ways.
Yes. Um, I think that's kinda why in some ways they can be, like, very disembodying because you're, like, jolting to something that you should be cultivating over years and years of, like, hard internal and external work, and you just take a tab or some mushrooms or smoke some DMT or whatever, and you're there, like, pretty instantaneously, and it just kinda, like, takes you out of your body or, like, way high up into your body where you never fully ground back in, and, yeah, it leaves you kinda wanting more, and you're not cultivating anything, and a lot of people never integrate any of their experiences anyways, um, so they're very interesting, but after being sober for, like, a year and a half, I don't have the same view about them. I don't necessarily think they're bad, but I don't think they are the answer that people keep praising they are. I think they can help in ways, but I don't know why people have to keep like people that do ayahuasca like hundreds and hundreds of times. Like, why why are you doing that? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It feels like they're like chasing the dragon or whatever they call it. Um, and in some ways too, it seems like with certain psychedelics, it's like people almost it's almost like a competitive kinda thing where it almost becomes very egotistical, and they're like, "Yeah, I went down to the jungle and I drank 2 cups of ayahuasca every day for 7 days, so now I'm like some spiritual, like, shaman guru that knows all the answers to the universe, and now I'm gonna start, now I'm a shaman," and it's like, "What the fuck are people doing?" Like, "No."
I took my 3-week certification course and now I'm a shaman.
And I don't know, I
Crazy,
feel like that
dude.
I don't think it's like a phenomenon where everyone's doing that, but it definitely seems like it's happening more and more where people just go do it and then they think they're a shaman. And then instead of uh, when they think they've, like, I don't know, had some ego death or whatever, they really had an ego inflation, and they create all these blind spots that they can't see.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like you kinda, like, make a bubble around yourself and pop more into it. So you pop more into your ego, and then it's like yeah, I kinda just got a visual for, like, what you that's funny. That is what it is, because when I was doing psychedelics all the time, that's basically all it was, is I was always trying to chase the importance of how my life has something explicitly has to do with me, my journey, where I am, where I'm going, all the things that mean something to me. And it almost like puts you in a headspace where it like inverses you in back to yourself in a strange way where the journey does become all about you. And when you're off the psychedelics, all that stuff kind of crystallizes again and removes, and you just live a normal life again. And I think that's almost more meaningful in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think, sometimes psychedelics can make you live a very abstract life or way of looking at things that kinda don't make sense when you aren't on them.
Yeah.
Like you said, it and kind of inverts you back to yourself, like, everything's about me, which in ways is true, but not true at the same time. Um, and I also felt like when I was doing it, was, like, definitely, like, that form of escapism or, like, "Oh, I'm using this as a tool to, like, uncover, like, whatever issue I'm having. I need a trip, and it's gonna help me, like, and go inside myself and, like, chisel out this problem that I'm having, or it's gonna give me some epiphany to solve my answers, and then I can integrate it into my life." And sometimes it would do that, and sometimes it wouldn't, and then I'm just, like, looped back, and then it's just like, "Oh, I need to take some mushrooms to, help with this, or I need to take some acid to do with this, or I need to smoke weed to do this," and it's always, like, putting it outside something outside yourself instead of just, like, cultivating, uh, that energy within yourself and learning to use your mind and clear your mind to really focus and narrow down on what the actual problem getting to the root cause of the issue, um, instead of being in this disembodied state.
Yep, that's what they do. They kind of extract out your sense of identity and plaster you in this like celestial like observatory container field where it's all about you and you have all these things that you need to heal about yourself and come do this, come do that, do, do, do. And it's like it's a new journey every time, but you integrate further and further into the trance of it and you think you're making progress. So I think like after I mean, I've done it probably 300 times now, a variety of different psychedelics, all before like the age of 25. And I think after the 10th one, I probably should have stopped, because it was like after the 10th one, then it really just prepared me for the next one. And that prepared me for the next one. And the psychedelics are dangerous. And I used to never really think that. Like, I almost used to come like, oh, yeah, you don't need a trip partner. You don't need someone to watch over. You don't need all these things. I think that now I've kind of changed my mind on that if you do approach these things. Because my whole method was just like go at it alone, just go walk into the forest at midnight and just battle your demons and find who you are and just take a dose and figure it out. And I think now that's probably about the dumbest thing that you could possibly do. In hindsight,
Yeah, can, leave you a very it can just leave you unstable if you don't have someone there to, like, ground you. Like, you can definitely do harm if you just go on some, like in some thought loop and you're just caught for hours on a thought and have no one there to, like, talk to and help get you out of it, so it can be damaging, and I think to a point with me as well, it's almost just, like, more of a recreational thing. I just liked the feeling and the state of mind it would put me in, and not I wouldn't always necessarily use it as a tool. I'll just be, at a music festival and, like, this goes really good with listening to this kind of music, and I wanna stay up all night and, party with my friends. So, you take a couple tabs and you're not going to sleep anytime soon, and you're just having a good time, but also you're in this such a high state of energetic awareness. You're, like, picking up on everybody else, and, I mean, I've seen things that I probably traumatized me from being just, like, tripping so hard and see him just let someone, like, fall on the ground and start seizing or just all sorts of weird shit, and you're just like, "Did I really see that, or did I just make am I making that up in my mind?" Like, getting real paranoid, and yeah, it can definitely have some very dark sides to it that can, like, leave certain people, like, psychologically traumatized or just spun out for the rest of their life because they just did too much, and nobody ever wants to talk about that. They just or it's people do, but it's very far and few between. Everyone wants to talk about how these are, the next healing medicines, and I feel like you need to talk about this side because there's a lot that can go wrong, and if you're just saying all these great things and not talking about the cons of it, you're gonna put a lot of people in harm's way.
So what do you think then about I mean, there are centers who, you go in there, it's not a recreational thing. You go in there with the intent of healing. There's practitioners, there's nurses and doctors present, and that sort of clinicalized version of this stuff. What do you think about that? Does it have that same effect of escaping, or could that be more of a beneficial resource for people? And how would you even know that that's the right route to go?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question to answer because I do know there are some benefits to them because I mean, definitely had benefits from doing them in the past, but I think it's just would be about the way it's approached because you don't want people becoming like dependent on that, where they feel like every 6 months or every year they have to go back to this center or whatever. Um,
That's a lot of what I see with those things is, "This is my 5th time going to here, and I come here every." And even
and
that is kinda weird, right?
yeah, but I think, yeah, I mean, I think for some people it definitely can be beneficial because I don't know if everyone's cut out to do the type of s- spiritual work that requires like years of just dedication and discipline within yourself. Um, it's not an instant gratification, and a lot of people look for that gratification and quick fix, which is kind of what psychedelics do in a way. Even though you still have to like integrate your experience. Um, so I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Um,
It's almost like we'd have to try it one more time once again to see our real thoughts about it 2 years later, and then we'll tell you
Yeah,
more.
but yeah, I was gonna say I feel like the plants or whatever, I think people get so hooked onto them, and it's because these plants are conscious. So I know definitely for cannabis, it's like that consciousness is almost like overtaking you, and it becomes like your identity. And you see this definitely a lot with people that smoke weed, where it's like their whole life, their whole identity is smoking weed. Like that's their
Mhm.
whole thing. That's all like, you know, I live and breathe it. And and I think it's because the plant consciousness is almost like attached itself to the person and is like speaking through them like
That's crazy
and I think that's kind of what's happening.
because you can be around people who smoke weed and even, like, different kinds of people, and there's always this sort of cloud around them. It's not even negative, it's just a cloud of energy, and it is like the spirit of marijuana is around them,
Yeah.
right?
And I know I definitely had that like plant consciousness like attached to me in a way because just remember like I mean that's for part of my life I was like that was like felt like my identity. I was just like smoke weed every day. That's what I do. You know, I gotta oh I'm gonna watch a movie. I'm gonna smoke weed. Oh I want to get food. I gotta smoke weed. I'm gonna go to
Mm.
class. I'm gonna smoke weed before. It's just like if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna do that. And or like in college, I'd be in class and I would just be thinking about going back to my apartment or house and just like smoking a joint or smoking my bowl. It just like consumes you. And then you're like, oh, it's not addictive. I can stop anytime, but I just don't want to right now. And
What's the harm? No one's ever died smoking weed.
yeah, it's just like you people that are so inundated with it and in that cloud, they just don't see any negative effects. But once I like stopped and like months and months went by and now it's been like a year and a half, I'm just like wow, I really was just like in this cloud of smoke and
Literally, right?
it was affecting me. It wasn't helping with like it was making like my I mean, I originally, saying, "Oh, it's helping depression, anxiety, or stress," and it was really just making like anxiety or depression work, or it was just a crutch where it was just pushing it down and not really helping and just ignoring. And I work in the cannabis industry still, and I see it every day with people. Like, yeah, it is helping people, and I will say it's probably better that they use that than certain pharmaceutical drugs that are probably going to cause more damage to their bodies, but people still end up using it as a crutch. And like the one example I think is like sleep, where people are like, I need this to go to sleep. And it's like, you don't need it to go to sleep. You just find it as a crutch. And eventually it's not going to help you go to sleep. And that's why you have to keep upping your dosage more and more and more after time and time again. And then you're like, why isn't it working? It's like, well, it's because you've been smoking or using this for the past 10 plus years, like, your body just is shot. Your endocannabinoid system is it's shot. It's not working as properly anymore because 'cause you've been using this thing and just putting your body through it every single day, and you need to take a tolerance break, and people that doesn't even cross most people's mind. They're like, "Oh, I never even thought about that." Like, that makes sense, and it's like, yeah, it does make sense. Like, of course,
Yeah,
but,
but
yeah, people
these
don't wanna get to the root cause.
yeah, I mean, if you're anxious smoking weed and then if you just smoke weed and it gets rid of it, it's almost a better solution just to fix the anxiety, right? Or any other problem that, people kind of tried to find a external solution for. Thing is, it does take like that spiritual work to do those things.
Eh,
In a
yeah, it
way, it
takes
almost doesn't even seem
discipline.
necessary sometimes, right? Because like, what is the harm of just smoking weed? Why not just pop a tab and do that once every few weeks and just kind of, do that? Why not? And I think that you kind of have to reach a certain level where you recognize the harm of it and you kind of spin your wheels long enough and realize, oh man, it's not really doing what you think it's doing to you. And then you just kind of quit cold turkey and like, oh wow, I never really needed it. So did you ever have any effects where when quitting these things, it like was it hard for you to quit?
Um, the so for for cannabis, I, like, kinda weaned my way off it. It was I think it was yeah, it was, like, a year and a probably, like, 2 years ago when I, like, started kinda, like, slowing down heavily. So I, like, took a tolerance break, I think it was maybe sometime in the summer 2 years ago. Stopped for 2 weeks because I was just like, "This I'm just not getting the desired effects anymore." Like, I can smoke, like, a whole gram to my face and probably a little more, and, like, it's, like, barely doing anything, so I was like, "I need to take a break." So, like, took a week's break, felt good, then, like, smoked again, then, like, after a day, my tolerance was just, like, back up, and I was like, "I'm just gonna stop for a month." Stopped for a month, and I, like, felt great. I was like, "Man, this feels, like, really good." I was like, "I don't think I'm just gonna, like, kinda, like, cut back a little bit." So I, like over, like, the next few months or whatever, like, leading into fall and winter, I just, like, slowly started smoking less and less and, like, smoking, like, more CBD to where towards the end, I was, like, pretty much smoking CBD with, like, a little bit of just, like, THC, like, rolled into a joint or whatever, or, like, in a vaporizer. And then, like, right before the new year, I was like, "I'm just gonna stop completely and just kinda see how long I can go without using this." And then a couple months into it, I was like, "I'm just gonna stop for a whole year. I'm just gonna go a whole year. This feels good, and it feels like something I should do." And, it just after a few months, I was like, "I don't think I ever wanna smoke again." Not that I maybe was like, "Maybe I will," but right now in my life, I don't think I ever want to again. And I think you can stop cold turkey with it, but I definitely think the progression of, like, really dialing it back to where it's, like, practically nothing over a couple months made it easier, um, to where I, like, didn't really desire it anymore. But there were times where I'd kinda be like, "I wonder what would it be like if I smoked right now?" But I'd be like, "That'd just be a really bad decision because 'cause I'll regret it as soon as I do it." Um, and I would have dreams that, like, I smoked, and I'd, like, wake up and be like, "Oh my god, did I" like, be like, "Oh god, I didn't actually do that." But so it's kinda interesting, like, where I'd have these, like, dreams every once in a while where I'd, like, get high in my dream, and I could feel like I got high in my like, in the dream, and then I wake up and be like, "Oh, that didn't actually happen." That's interesting that it's, like, kinda like this residual effect wearing off, um, but still, like, affecting me in the dream space. But that hasn't happened in a while, and I've felt like I have more energy, like, I'm more clear-minded, uh, just like I sleep better now, just overall just feel much better and, like, more clear-minded, from stopping it. It was probably the best decision I've made, or one of the best decisions I've made in my life was stopping smoking weed.
So obviously these, things are beneficial to a certain degree and we would probably agree that at least everyone should try one of these things at least once in their life. But I'm wondering, like, what would be the actual use case for that? Because, like you said, they're not really addictive in the sense that your bodies depend on it. It's more like your mind can create an attachment to the novelty of the experience and just trying to chase after that next feeling or that next high. So I'm wondering, like, what would be the reasons for someone to start using these things and the indications to stop? Because they are beneficial. Psychedelics, they were beneficial for a time. Weed was beneficial. Robo tripping was not beneficial. You know, everything else, it's hard to quantify, man. I mean, we we tried these things, they worked for us for a while, and they clearly made us who we are, and we probably wouldn't be the same without having tried them. But now that we're not on them, what does that mean, right?
Yeah,
You don't regret it, do you?
no, I don't regret it. Um, yeah, I don't know if everybody should try them at once, but I think for certain people, trying them everything one like, trying things one time is it doesn't hurt. Um, but I think that's maybe all you really need. One maybe one time, maybe like 1 to 3 times, and I think really after that, you I feel like after 3 times, you kinda understand what it's about. Um, maybe not for everyone, but I think there just needs to be, like, a better, uh, education around, like, the cons to them and how you don't really need these, things, uh, to excel in your life or to gain spiritual knowledge and whatever else people say about them. Like, it can be a tool, but they also can be abused as tools. And like that quote is, once you get the message, just hang up the phone. You don't need to keep calling back because it's gonna be the same answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think better resources need to be made for them, especially like resources that if you do decide to do them, like here's what to expect when you're on it. Because a lot of like what fueled my journeys in the psychedelic realms is I thought that I was tapping into something that no one else has ever tapped into in all of human history, right? Because it feels that way. You're like, holy
Yeah.
shit, I'm seeing the geometry connected to the star
Oh,
grid, and I'm
yeah. I mean, I thought I figured out the answer to life. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I thought I was like, I figured it out. I got it all out. It's all in my head. And then you're like, the next day, you're like, I can't put it into words. I don't remember, but I had it.
yeah. And then you walk around your life thinking, I had this tremendous experience. Life is all about me. I'm better than everyone. Do do do. And And it's like, I think we need to document that element of the psychedelic journey and be like, no, here's like all the effects that you probably experienced. We've all had it too. And I think that like collapsing that desire within me to keep on going. If someone would have just told me, yeah, I had that exact experience, I had this, it would have probably wanted me to, it would have made me want to stop doing it because I thought that I was tapping into something no one else tapped into before. But clearly other people have.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has similar experiences or a similar underlying experience. Um, but yeah, it's I just see so many people online or people I know that are still so kind of in ways not consumed, but will be like, I'm sober, but I still eat mushrooms every month or do go to plant medicines and all this other stuff. And like, I, it's like I'm spiritual, so I have to do this. And then I don't know.
It's become the new trend, you know?
Yeah.
It's all the cool kids are doing it. And so
Yeah, it's very trendy.
they're doing it,
The
so why not should we, right? Because they
yeah,
must
the
know.
thing mhm, and the new it's not, like, new, but what seems to be the trend that I'm noticing now is, like, I think it's called Cambo,
Ca
which
Yeah.
is the frog poison that people, like, with the stick, I think, and you just purge for, I don't know, like, 45 minutes or an hour. So it's not quite a psychedelic. I mean, I guess it kind of is in some ways. I've never done that before, but yeah, I've kinda seen that feel like becoming more popular, which I don't know, again, it's just like kept, like, externalizing or another form of escapism where it's like, "Oh, I gotta do my ceremony again, I gotta purge all my whatever out." And I don't know, to me, it seems like I mean, how many times do you have to do that?
It's a lifelong journey. It never
Yeah,
ends. You always have to
like, you
keep
don't
going back.
yeah, don't need to do that. I don't know. To me, at least, I don't think you need to. I think you need to work on, like and I haven't accomplished this, but just, like, becoming, like, very disciplined with your mind and, like, really being able to, like, pinpoint, like, where your root causes are coming from, and then, like, once you find that, like, dissolving it and it no longer affects you. But I think another reason why people loop in the psychedelics is they're like, "Oh, it's healing my traumas." It's like, you just keep looping in your traumas. That's why you can't get out of them because you keep thinking about them and keep going back to them instead of just being like, "That happened," and moving on.
Yeah,
But they're like,
that's
"I'm gonna go
what
do
it is.
ayahuasca for the 1000th time because I need to heal my childhood traumas." And it's
It gives the feeling like you're healing your traumas, but really in the psychedelic realm, you're kind of tapping into that space where you're so opened up so that whatever trauma is lingering within you, it kind of changes a position or changes around. And so your relationship to it will change and it will feel like you're healing, but you get back into real life later on and it's still there. The thing that, like, why I always did the psychedelics and was really into it is because it did feel like it was actually healing me on a tangible level. Because I would like pop a tab or something, and in an hour, 2 hours, I would be a completely different person. And I would even feel like, the chakra points in your body, I would feel where each one is positioned and placed, and I would feel them moving around and, like, changing their structure. My voice would change. Like, I would just feel like I was human again. And so it almost upgraded my character to, like, make me feel real. And I guess that's why I always turned to the psychedelics because it did really make it felt like it was just pop a pill and you're healed. And then you come out of it and you're just not. That
yeah, I
always
think it
made me question things, you know?
yeah, I think it does heal you to a degree. Um, I just don't know how deep that healing is going and how long it's lasting.
Yeah,
You know,
it's not a
because
sustainable thing, right?
yeah, I don't know how sustainable it is, but to a degree, I think they do. But yeah, it's just again, I think there's like a payoff. When you're doing that, it's not. there's gotta be some sort of exchange. So when you're taking all these psychedelics, it's not just all, you know, all good. There's some sort of energetic exchange that's going on, and I think there's I think there's a lot that we don't know what's going on when we take them. Um, I remember listening to some podcasts, and this guy was I don't remember, he may have been talking about, like, psilocybin shrooms or just maybe psychedelics in general, and how they're, like, draining our minerals from our body, or certain minerals,
Think I've heard something similar. Yep.
but it was just, like, along the lines of, like, you're taking this, like, there's always, like, a give and take with things, and nobody wants to talk about, like, the take with psychedelics.
Yeah, it's almost like it's taking days of your life force energy. You're borrowing from the future to give you all this compact energy now. And then like for a week you're gonna feel like shit because you're like, damn, you know, where's my high again? I thought it was gonna stay forever. This one time I was coming off a trip and it was one of those trips where I found the secret to the universe, right? I was staring at the moon. I realized, oh my god, it's reality's one big trick. It's all about consumption. And I came to this conclusion that like how you stay in the matrix is by eating food, drinking water, and sleeping. So how you escape the matrix, how you escape like not like going back into that real sort of 3D avatar mode that we live our daily lives in. How you escape that is you have to not eat food, don't drink water, and don't sleep. No consumption, just pure light vessel. And I tried it for like half a day, and obviously that doesn't work. You need all three of those things. So you can just go into so many crazy like mind lines and loops that feel so real in the moment. And it's just like you tell people this stuff, you're like, dude, you're crazy. But
Yeah.
it feels real, right? You're like, oh my
Yeah, it feels
God,
very real,
that's it.
especially especially while you're tripping. I mean, everything feels very real, and you feel like you're making all these crazy connections that nobody's thought of before. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes you like go back the next day and look at whatever you wrote down. You're like, that absolutely makes no sense at all. Like, what the fuck? Um,
I need to go back in, I need to take another tab. I need to get the
yeah,
code.
yeah. It's said it's sometimes it's like it's almost like they're little tricksters, you know?
It's almost like you're in there and an AI is studying you. And it's
Yeah.
just almost
Well,
trying to see like you're not in control and it's like trying to move you so it can study its own self. It's weird.
yeah, I mean, it's very weird. It's very strange because you are like tapping into those layers um, that you don't really always perceive in your normal state of mind. You're kind of seeing that like under functionality of reality, um, which I think that's why some people get so intrigued and want to keep going back and back and back and back and back again. I mean, I definitely know for me that's part of the reason. It's just like I gotta, I gotta see that again. I gotta like try to understand like what's going on. But I don't know. Maybe there's some of that stuff we're not meant to understand. But that way, it's just like system overload.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case. I mean, that's kind of theme I'm starting to step into is like if I need to understand it, it will at some point in time become obvious in my life that I need to know this thing. And with psychedelics, it's always, you're stretching out there to find something that you don't yet know, but life itself will hand you nearly everything that you need to know on a moment to moment basis. And is if you can like get really good at interpreting those organic signals from the universe, you don't really need a psychedelic.
Yeah. It's kinda like I just kinda had this sort of analogy. It's like, if we are these, like it's kinda like compared to a computer, where all like, each individual person is kind of this, like, biogenetic, whatever, computer, and, if you overload your computer and you don't have enough, CPU or storage, and you're trying to put all these programs and running all these programs, that's what, like, the psychedelic is, and it's, like, overheating, and then it crashes. Sometimes it's like the psychedelic is just like a information overload. You can't compute all of it because we just don't have the storage space for it.
Too many things going on. Humans are almost meant to live a more simple life.
Yeah, too many tabs open.
Like 87
Yeah.
Google Chrome tabs open in your mind. Just don't work, dude. Barely works with five.
Yeah. What? It's, it's just a very interesting kind of realm with all that. And it's interesting too because they're becoming so almost mainstream now, which would also make you kind of question like what's going on there. When things start going mainstream, you know,
That's when you know.
h- that's when you probably shouldn't trust it. And I know a lot too within like the 60s and stuff with all those like counterculture leaders, almost the majority of them were like CIA operatives or like CIA, had some sort of relationship to the CIA. It was all engineered.
Yeah, that was always what I questioned, right? Because by far my favorite was, popping a tab, right? And I didn't really prefer, the mushroom or any other variety that I tried. It was always like the most reliable thing was popping a tab. And people would always tell me, it's like, this made in a lab, right? Or like in the 70s, the CIA had some type of, program which they made all these things and distributed out to the people for a very specific reason and that always made me question why I found the tabs more engaging and exciting. But it was like I was tapping into like a digitized AI realm. And maybe that's what they were building at that time, with all the lost technology. Who knows?
I don't know. I do know like acid definitely does have that more like electric feel to it.
Yeah.
But just,
So each of them do have their own spirits. You got the mushroom that's more earthy, more of the
yeah,
history
I
of the
mean,
world.
mhm.
Pop tab, and you're like in cyberspace. And what else? What other varieties are there out there that people take? You can
I
take
mean,
peyote. That's kind of both.
peyote is I've never done that, but people say that's more of like they say like ayahuasca is like the grandmother kind of like spirit, like more jungly, and peyote is like the grandfather and kind of has more of the like desert vibe, which makes sense because it's a cactus and ayahuasca comes from a vine in the jungle, so that makes a lot of sense why they say that. Um, But yeah, they definitely all have their own spirit and consciousness. And like I said earlier, I think they kind of attach on to people when they really start using them a lot, kind of like speaking through the person. And it's like you're speaking, but that's really like the plant speaking. That's why sometimes people get sort of like offended when you like talk about stuff like this. And they're like, no, I'm not addicted to it, or it can't be addictive, or there's nothing bad with them. And I was like, "Is that you speaking or is that the plant?"
It's like a parasite, you know? The parasite needs to convince the host to keep consuming its
Yeah.
food source. It's like the human is like the main conduit for consciousness, and then we have all these plugins that can attach to us, and they all give us these nice, like, visual effects to it, you know? But if you just develop your, like, core, that's almost what we're meant to do, not just add on a bunch of plugins to our mental and energy bodies.
Yeah, I think exactly.
There's the
It's
psychedelic plugins, there's, like, the new health trend plugins. There's I mean, how many of these different things that otherwise, if you weren't told about them, you know, you wouldn't even know that they existed, so therefore they wouldn't be thoughts in your mind. So much of what our modern culture right now is something like that. Like, you wouldn't even know, like, take this special pill, this, like, new thing, or God, almost anything. Every external source that, like, you would otherwise would have never even known about, but is marketed to you, sold to you, told it's a cool thing.
Yep.
You don't need it, man. Just the raw human experience. Got a raw dog life, man. That'll be the name of this episode.
Yeah,
Raw dog and life.
yeah, maybe. Okay. Then you got that just made me think of, like, people like Aubrey Marcus, who is just like sometimes I wonder if that guy has, just some sort of, like, operative or something because he pushes the psychedelics so hard. Just like, "No, go do ayahuasca." Well, he doesn't push it, but he just talks about it all the time. He's like, "I'm not telling people to do it, but I do ayahuasca, 7 times a year," or whatever. I've been doing ketamine for the past 7 months. S
There is something inorganic about it too, right? I mean, there's another guy I've been following for a long time, basically ever since he started, Ben Greenfield. And
Oh, yeah.
you know, and then there's
Uh,
Dave Asprey as well. And both these figures were pretty important for my like journey for you know, like learning about health and like fitness and like biohacking. But at a certain point, you kind of, it's like how many routines, rituals, supplements, tactics, gears, gadgets
seems
do you need?
exhausting.
Yeah,
Seems super exhausting.
you don't need
It's
it.
like, I don't know. Don't a lot of
Unless you wanna make a career out of selling devices and pushing the research further, and
yeah.
I mean, then that's a noble cause or whatever, but
Yeah, I think there's, like, things to that stuff to degrees, but kinda think a lot of it's just bullshit. Um, I think you can do a lot more simple things and get good results. I think everything just kinda comes down to discipline, like, if you're disciplined and consistent in whatever you're doing, you'll see results, but if you're not, it's gonna be a lot harder to see those results. Um,
it's all about the
Easier said than
intention.
done. Yeah.
Like, if you have the wrong intention, like this routine or ritual or hack will heal you, that's going at it the wrong way. I mean, you even see it, like, in the ice bath culture, like, "Gotta wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, take my ice bath, and just, like, get that buzz going," and it's just like, "Do you? 'Cause I heard someone talk about, like, how wasn't, like, the higher ideal saying that? That
Yeah,
people who
he has a
chronically do the ice bath thing are, like, traumatizing your nervous system? It's like,
yeah,
that makes more sense than it helping
dude,
you.
he that guy says a lot of really, uh, kinda, well thought out things that nobody really talks about. That's kinda why I like him, but, yeah, he talked about the ice bath, and he, talked about breath work doing the same thing, where it's just, all these people doing are just ventilating and just, creating more ventilate pathways. You're not actually, releasing trauma or anything, it's just ventilation, and probably really butchering that, but he kinda said the same thing with the ice baths. He's, just, really kinda, stressing out your nervous system in not a good way and, putting a lot of stress, I think he said, on your kidneys or something, and then he, was saying, "Look at Wim Hof, he's, aged so much, uh, and, all the people that, do it all the time, just" he's like, "They're just you can see they're aging so much in their face."
That was one reason I think why I never really got into the gym culture. You know, like, around 18, 19, I started, like, doing weightlifting and, like, I guess that's when it just started to be cool on Instagram, like, everyone's going to the gym, everyone wants to be a bodybuilder, woo, you know? And then I just started to notice, like, a lot of people my age that were going to the gym and doing that stuff, they would, like, start losing their hair or they'd start getting really big and bulky and older and or, like, inflamed, and I started to, like, notice even some of those effects within myself, and I never go to the gym now, and I haven't, like, done any weightlifting for a long time, none of these things, and I think it's because, like, why I continue to stay young is I don't stress out my body. I don't try to build muscle and grow and all this kinda stuff, and every time I do go to the gym to, like, go to the sauna or whatever, I see people my age that are, like, look like they're 35 years old. So even gym culture, lifting weights, there's something to that. Everything, man.
Yeah. Or they're using steroids.
Yeah, they're using steroids and posing in the mirror and looking at their triceps.
Yeah, 'cause that's definitely a part of this, gym culture.
Yeah. But it's not too common though, right? I mean, like, most people are just avid gym goers, and a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff can just be fixed by your diet?
Yeah, you're tired and you don't need to I mean, you don't everyone doesn't need to be a bodybuilder, so you don't need to be, pushing yourself super hard. Um, but it's interesting. It's very interesting.
It's like the more you're focusing on your external 3D character and trying to build yourself and add to your mass and be focused on your like appearance in the mirror and like how you're growing, it puts you in that state where you're embodying the avatar more. And I don't know, that just doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. Like, imagine if you went your life without ever having a mirror. What would that look like? Like, you never knew what you look like. That's kind of what I try to
Hmm.
always look through life. Like, I'm not even like a screen. I'm just a screen of reality, whatever I see.
Yeah, that'd be really trippy. I know there's been times where I've, gone a couple days or something, haven't, like more like when I've been at, festival or camping and there's just I'm not looking at a mirror or there's no mirrors around, so I haven't seen myself, and then, then after that couple days or whatever, you, finally see yourself in a mirror, it's a weird feeling, you're like, "Oh, kinda almost forgot what I looked like there."
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be very weird if you never, like, saw yourself in a mirror.
I mean, animals are kind of like that, right? Unless they're taking a sip from a pond or something, they have to know. But animals are
Yeah.
always more peaceful and calm and in their nature, right?
Mhm.
Maybe it's the lack of mind, I'm not sure, but sometimes I think that our truest nature is to embody more of like an animal. And that was the one thing that psychedelics they did, I guess, show me is because every time you're in nature, you feel like an animal. You feel like I'm connected to the trees and the wind and everything's talking to me. The birds, I can know what they're saying. You know, we're not meant to live in these boxes. Everything boxed in, closed in. You know, we're in these buildings where we're not even feeling the real air. It's all filtered air, AC.
Yeah. Everything's very, like, angular.
Yeah, which that kind of gets
Yeah.
us into the geometry, folks. You know, trying to study the angles and the pyramids and the squares. What do you think about that stuff?
About the about which one? The the geometry people or
The endless chase of the universal pattern.
I don't know, it seems to I think it's fascinating in some ways, but, it seems mentally exhausting and, like, yeah, I don't
It resembles
it's like
psychedelics in a lot of ways
yeah,
because it's like a mirage that you can see it and it's right there, but then it changes and then you're like, oh, but I just seen it. And you spend your whole time trying to figure it out and it never gives you what you think it will
yeah,
give
it's
you.
like yeah, I don't know if you can ever figure it out, and yeah, like, it kinda is like psychedelics, so, like, you think you've figured it out, but I don't know, how do you really know?
Yeah,
It's
what
like
is the
puzzle pieces, but
yeah, it's a puzzle piece. What is the quantifiable response metric that you're tracking to determine like the quality of the truth that you're accessing? Is it a feeling? Is it like, oh, I just know it? I That's why even in the spiritual community, a lot of it is still follow your feelings, follow your bliss, follow what feels right.
yeah, and that's I mean, I feel like the psychedelics kinda tie into the new age spiritual where it's like, oh, you trip and then you're like, oh, I never thought about this. And then you kind of like start, because I feel like for me, that's kind of what I took psychedelics and then I kind of got sort of into like the new age spirituality. It kind of like happened almost simultaneously.
Yeah, they go hand in hand, don't they? All the
Yeah.
colors, all the
Yeah.
nice paintings, the Alex Gray paintings, and like the
Yeah. Where it's like, oh, it's all you know, you take acid and you're like, we're all one. It's all love and light. Then you like find out who Eckhart Tolle is and you're like, the power now. You're like, oh, yes, this all makes sense, of course.
I'm here.
And I'm here now,
You are
yes.
here now. You are here.
It's just, you know, so it's funny how that when like with Ram Dass, it's like, "Oh, be here now," and then, like, you, like, listen to that stuff when you're fucking tripping, you're like, "Oh my this is so profound. How did I think of this?"
I mean, there is like a type of substance to all these works. You know, Terence
Yeah,
McKenna, Ram Dass, Eckhart
yep,
Tolle, Alan Watts, like all of
100%.
them.
I think there definitely is, but it's, there's substance to it, but there are also traps in ways where you just keep, "I gotta read the next book. I gotta read the next book." Like, I just gotta keep listening. I gotta keep listening. Where you just get in this loop and then you just hit this plateau and you never go anywhere. You just create all this it creates a lot of noise. Uh,
You fall in love
yeah,
with the guru's message,
yeah,
and you await the new information. When you've already watched it all, consumed all the content, then you're like, "Oh, shit, gotta find a new guru now." Now it's Abraham Hicks, and then it's like, Bashar, and then it's whoever else, Dolores Cannon.
yeah. Yeah, and you're just filling your mind up with more and more content to where you're just it's all you're thinking about, or just like I gotta get to that. I gotta find the next one. And you never end up actually implementing any of the things. You're just kind of intellectualizing everything, which is definitely something that I do a lot. Where it's like I understand things, but then I don't always put them into practice. It's like I know exactly what that means and what they're saying, but it's not how I'm living my life right now.
"Ooh, I'm just gonna wait for one more thing to kinda break in my life, and then I'll
Yeah,
start doing it. Cause right now it's
yeah,
fine."
exactly. And it's actually interesting because like I got that course, I guess you would call it, from the higher deal
Yep, yep.
one, and like the first two practices, I mean, they're super simple, but it's like I don't know how I never really thought about that, and maybe I have. I just never really um, put it into a practice. But like the first little exercise, it's so simple, but it's so profound. It's just sit for um, 5 to 15 minutes, put a timer on, and you're just sitting. And anytime a thought arises, just say, I'm not thinking about that. I'm sitting. Something else comes up. I'm not thinking about that. I'm sitting. I'm not thinking about that. I'm sitting. And then you're sitting there and you're like, "Oh my god, I've said this so many times." And you start to realize, like, all the little thought bubbles, thought seeds that just are constantly populating in your mind. And I'm guessing the more you practice this, it's building, uh, that, like, mental discipline of just focusing on the one thing you're doing at that time. Because, you know, if you're sitting and just trying to sit and relax, all you should be thinking about or is just sitting and relaxing. If you're cooking dinner, you're just cooking dinner. And when you need to think about and he's like, you'll those thoughts that are coming up, when you need to think about them, they'll come up at the another time when you actually need to think about it. But like a lot of people's minds, they just have so many thoughts coming up where you're like thinking about, oh, what am I gonna make for dinner? Oh, what did I do yesterday? Oh, what was that song on the radio? Where you just like keep going from like A to B to D to F and like it's just like all over the place. It's like so chaotic. So it's like trying to practice where your mind is more focused and less noisy.
All those mind lines form in the
Yeah.
constellation around you, and you're, like, hovering around to here, ding, 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 ding. Hovering around the
But
mental constellation. You pop back, you're like, "Whoa, sorry, oh, I'm doing this, okay."
yeah.
For me, I get visions with that. So almost every thought I have a vision with it, and I can, like, literally see it. And you'd think that that would be a benefit, but it's not. It's more of a curse than anything, because when the believability of the thought is paired with the vision of it being more real, it builds that quality to it, which makes the thought you wanna follow it more and more. And it's helpful in creativity, but in other realms, it's not. You gotta know how to sort the pipelines of thinking, you know, which thoughts you wanna have, which ones you don't. I think it takes
Yep.
a lifetime to figure out, like, how the mind even works. Takes a long time
Well,
to figure this shit out.
it's just yeah, it's a lot of gotta be disciplined and aware and just like observant. Yeah, it's that's what this whole like course practices are all about. Is their lifetime practices to start to not ways to understand your mind better and use it more efficiently, which everybody can use. Everybody can do. But, not everybody wants to do that because learning those types of things are not quick fixes. They are, like you said, a lifetime practice.
Some people aren't cut out to want to go down this road.
No,
It really doesn't seem
but
like it.
I mean, that's like, I take people on like mindful, nature walks, and it's very beneficial and it's super easy. You don't have to know how to do anything, but you know, people every time I take people out, they're always like, well, I was not expecting like to gain so much like insight. It's like, but they'll probably lose that later. Like some people will probably lose that later in the week, but something you can always come back to. Not crazy. It's not gonna,
Well, at least you can capitalize on it and make it a profitable business model. Hey, did you lose
yeah.
that feeling of that intuitive connection with nature? All right, book another section, another session
Yeah.
next Thursday. Just
Yeah.
keep your
I
clientele
mean,
that way,
most,
right?
yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, with anything, I mean, if you want any sort of wellness benefit to yourself, you got to do something like continually. You can't just do something once and then expect to be fixed. Which, again, why people like doing psychedelics because they're like, I'll just do this and I'll be fixed. But then I'll do it again and again and again.
Right, they got the repetition element down, but
Yeah.
it's not on the right thing.
Yeah. It's like just, you kind of got what you need to learn. Now stop taking the psychedelics and start just practicing. Like, pick up a meditation or just like sit and observe your thoughts and like try to see like where your thoughts are coming from and why you're having these thoughts. But I it almost seems like, people that do psychedelics are like, I'm doing it. I'm going to do the deep work and like face my fears and traumas. But why can't they? And I'm not saying that people don't do this too, but why can't you stop doing that psychedelics and then just sit still and try to face those problems? You know?
Because everything has to be a dramatic experience. It has to be
Uh,
something that's like, boom, I'm doing it big.
yeah,
I'm gonna get it
need
this
the
time.
need the drama. Gotta fly down to Peru or Costa Rica, have this whole ex extravaganza to figure out my life.
Stay in
Then you
this,
come back
come back and then
and
what?
and then you're like, "Well, I gotta go back again."
I miss that feeling. Where'd it go? Oh, it was in Peru. Oh, when I did that thing. Oh, it's right. I'll just book another session here.
Yeah,
I'll open the mobile app. All right. Boop. All right. My awareness, I'll just wait to upgrade myself at some future date in time at some exotic location where it's easy to even do that shit in the first place because you're like on a beach or whatever in the jungle and
yeah,
everything's fine. Come back home, got to pay my rent, got my job, got a car payment, got insurance. Now the economy's crashing. Like, how are you supposed to feel mindful and aware and want to do your soul work in these conditions in the world? It's kind of crazy. Know? Your mind has to leave the desire for the material consciousness to want to engage in the spiritual consciousness for a while. That is like that leap of faith that you have to take, which is why I think that these things are like why the seduction element around the psychedelics are there because
yeah.
you're just directly in it. You just take it, boom, you're in it now.
It's a mind vacation.
But to actually make that switch from viewing your life from material 3D avatar type stuff to like I'm a spiritual being in a light vessel here on a path and journey to learn and experience and I'm going to have challenges I'm going to face, I'm going to overcome them and life's about learning. It takes a while just to switch into your field to make that like your new base reality. I wonder how people could make that switch organically or what prompts people to want to change their lives in an authentic way versus a artificial way.
I think for most people want to change their lives, they have to be like in some sort of tough situation or have a problem that if they don't fix, um, it's gonna make things worse for them. Like if somebody's overweight and they go see a doctor and like I mean, you're gonna have heart issues if you don't, lose 100 pounds or whatever it is. So they're like, well, I guess I need to start eating healthy and exercising. Otherwise, you know, I could have some serious issues. Or someone's struggling financially and they just, they're like, I gotta figure something out so I can survive and get food on my table and keep a roof over my head.
Yeah, I think the pull into wanting to go down a spiritual path or take these things or do anything always comes from that position like you're not enough right now, you have something to learn, and this is going to be the solution or whatever. And a lot of like spirituality, I mean, even why people are drawn to it is because they have a problem, right? They have something to heal.
A lot of times it's like a mental like health problem or mental illness or whatever. Or someone's either like depressed or super anxious or super stressed out, and that's kind of how that's where all like the new age stuff they step into. And that's where like, they read The Power of the Now or whatever self-help book. Those lead to kind of like the spirituality, and then they find out about meditation or mindfulness, and they start to get some sort of relief. Um, but then they kinda sometimes they just stay there,
Yeah,
you
so
know?
these tools aren't inherently bad, it seems like. Just when you linger in them for too long, that's where the problem is created, and that's the usual effect that is created, you know? It's very rare to meet someone who they dabble in these things for a little while, get the message, and like, "Boop, I'm just doing my thing." It's like the marijuana thing. People, like, you know, they start doing spirituality, and a year later, you check up on them, they're even more spiritual. Check up on them later, they're even more spiritual, and they they really start to embody this, it changes their life, and they're super in it. But then almost every aspect of their reality is crashing down, but it doesn't matter because it's all material, bro. It's like, who needs money? Who needs a place to live? Like, just
Yeah.
let's live in a van and just it's all fine. And that's a dangerous spot to be in, man. I was in that spot before.
Yeah, I I was too, and I think that I mean, I think it kinda hurt me where, like yeah, I was like, "Ah," like you said, like, I was like, "Oh, I don't money, like, that's not important, and I don't care about that," and whatever, and it's like, man, I'm not, like, pressed on money or whatever, but, it's important, like, now, like, to be financially stable and stuff that money isn't everything, but it can make your life easier and less stressful when you don't have to worry about money, and you can enjoy things that you can't enjoy if you don't have money. Um, and it gives you freedom to certain degrees as well. But yeah, sometimes when you're just like inundated with that whole kind of woo woo spirituality and like psychedelic nonsense where you said, oh, it's just a material thing. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to live in my van and down by the river.
It's a fun life, man. But then you're sitting there in your fucking van and you're like, well, now I'm bored.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it can make you sort of jaded in ways too, certain things. And almost really like gives you that almost holier than thou, like, I can't be around normal people.
Can't be around the muggles or the normies.
Yeah. Which too, like, I kind of understand, but you still need to be able to interact with people to some degree.
It almost seemed like the muggles and the normies were more happy than I was.
It can be like that because you open up a fucking can of worms, the shit most people are ignorant to, and then you're like, how do you not know about any of this stuff? They're just kind of that ignorance is bliss, and they're just, happy drinking beer and watching football and eating hot dogs, and you're just like, I don't know, I don't understand. Mm.
Yeah, it's almost like the journey of self-awakening for a while. It feels like super manipulative because your life gets worse and you're like, dude, what's going on with me? But like, I'm getting this code and I know the code will help me, but my life gets worse. And everyone around you, they're not doing this stuff and they're fine. And like, their life almost gets better and yours gets worse. And you kind of tell yourself a story that it needs to be this way because I'm breaking the matrix. I'm going down the noble path, and your life just slowly gets ruined by doing this still, and you're like, any day now it's gonna go up for me, and then you're living in a van, and then you're broke, you have no money, and then everything's going bad, and you're like, it's gonna work out, and it's like it never does until you decide to like stop that version of spirituality and go back into the matrix in a lot of ways. Get a job, get an apartment, do your thing, and it works out. And that was like my early 20s, man. It was like that's how it seriously felt. Yeah, I don't know what
Yeah.
benefit I got from psychedelics, man. I'm really trying to think about, okay, what did I learn that I now apply to my life now? I really don't think too much.
Yeah, the only thing I can really think is that, like, just kinda open my mind up to a new way of thinking that I didn't access before. Um, maybe I'd already got there some other way, maybe I wouldn't have, but I don't need the psychedelics to access that way of thinking anymore. Kinda once you do it, it's kinda opened up and then you know how to just get back there.
No more plant spirits. No more spirits. They even call alcohol a
But
spirit, right?
yeah,
Go get your
like all
wine and
spirits.
spirits.
Yeah. Um,
No
yeah,
more
that's a
plugins,
form of
man.
yeah, I don't think you need them. I think people would be surprised how much they can do by themselves. Sometimes it may be hard, but it's rewarding.
The less dependencies that you require to boot up your system, the faster you're going to load, right?
Yes,
Got all these
exactly.
dependencies, all these memories, all these traumas, it's all a plugin. Just external things that we attach to ourselves because we think that we run faster or we require them when we really don't. It'd be interesting to like create a graph of like what all those things would be, like an infograph. Here's the self, here's all the extras, here's the effects that they create, here's what happens when you remove them.
Well, I mean, in a way, almost everything outside of yourself is kind of a plug-in. Some you need, some you don't.
So it's all about having the right plugins and having
Yeah,
a like a predetermined function for each one.
yeah. Because I mean, like, food's a plug-in, right? The content you listen to, you read and watch, those are plugins.
So that's like the input layer.
Yeah,
What's all inputting and then what are you
yeah,
outputting as a result? This is the direction that we're
like,
gonna be going down with this project, you
yeah,
know? Just kind of thinking about this stuff.
yeah, yeah. What are you inputting and how are you internalizing it and spitting it out to, I don't know, contribute to the world or just your everyday life?
That is something that does need to be like defined. Like what is like the purpose for an individual life? And I feel like everyone's trying to get to that point, to be honest, to like figure out like what is the intricate word salad that we can all create to approximate the meaning of life. The very like Jordan Peterson style
Yeah.
thing. I don't know if it's something that can even be formulated in a lot of ways because like one day, poof, you're like 8 years old and you have consciousness and you're like, you exist. And you're like, wow, I said that. And like, I'm real. And then one day, poof, you're just gone. So it's almost as if you never existed at all. So it's like we're trying to define everything in between. Like, how can we be okay with the movie script in front of our lives and make sense of it?
Let's just ask one of the spiritual gurus of Instagram. I'm sure they have an answer for us.
They probably do, and they'll probably sell it to you for
$3,000
$5,000 to join my 12-week coaching program.
that you will still not really understand anything, but you'll feel like you do.
And if you don't get it, it's your fault. So I have another course coming up in and you can join that one. Pay the monthly installments and we'll get you awakened in
Yeah,
5 easy steps.
that's what everyone's trying to do. They're trying to explain something that like almost can't be explained. But
I mean, that's the kind of thing like with me, for instance, I can explain it to myself what I'm trying to interpret, understand, and build a visual for it, tap into it. But then it loses its utility like a couple of days later. And maybe it was only meaningful for that period of time. And it really just shows that there's no way to use like a language to like statically build something real that stands the test of time because you're always shifting in relation to it. That's why you can never really be sold a course or sold unless the course is just like the course that you're taking now, a step-by-step system of simple
yeah, it's like a
practices that work.
yeah,
But
and
there's no
that's
truth that here it is, and now you got it.
yeah, exactly. Or just the practices that you literally can do for your entire life. It's not something you're gonna do for 3 weeks, a 3-week course, and then the 3 courses over, you're a certified master. It's like, no, this is gonna probably take your entire life to like fully master this, all this stuff.
Timeless transitions.
Uh, or just years to like get it down and then you can just keep practicing it and go deeper and deeper with it. Um, and it's like there's just like the stage one. There's like 2 other stages, which I probably won't do, but but it is useful information and good knowledge and kind of maybe something we can think about kind of doing with what we're doing for like something people buy. That's a useful practice that they can use for pretty much their life.
Yeah, it does make me think about like how can we create things that have that degree of integrity to it so that what we do create and produce is meaningful and is valuable. Because you'll just like swipe on Instagram or YouTube and you'll just like be bombarded with video after video after video. And I've kind of reached the revelation where none of it's really of any substance. It's just like regurgitated talking points and everyone's trying to build their own brand. by all saying the same thing so they can be plugged into the network of thought leaders who all are regurgitating this material. And with reality designers, we kind of have to build from a different foundation that's like a different direction. And thus we'll obviously be saying entirely new things here. But we don't want to be another guru group, another, hey, we just dropped a new podcast. Now we got thousands of views and like, ooh, that's so cool. And like people think that we know things. So how do we create things that are sustainable, that just where we just don't just pump out content, pump out content? I mean, I suppose we can't even control that, right? That's with the user.
Yeah, just got to,
I think we're on the right
it,
track because, we're not selling you a deity. We're not selling you a religion. You don't even have to believe it. If you just try it and it works or not. And I think that's where all the new age and everything, the spiritual groups, it starts to leach into is like why you should believe the idea is because it came from a channeled source. And so here's why. And the source comes from the Palladians 5,000 years into the future. And here, like all of that stuff, we're kind of cutting at the end of that and just like, here's the direct information. And we don't know where it comes from, but try it. And if it makes sense, cool. If not, try the next one, right? We're not a religion. So what are we?
just people trying to help people understand, have a better understanding of what's going on, and basically like creating tools and content to bring more clarity on what this reality may be and how you could move about more fluidly through it.
Creating content to help you develop the right plugins and know which ones are bogging you down.
Yeah. And,
Simple as that.
trying to make your life, less less noisy and more, get more clear, become a more like a clear stream of consciousness.
Hmm.
I don't know what all that's going to entail, but I think that's what people are looking for.
It has begun.
I mean, I know that's what I personally look for is how can I just become a more clear stream of consciousness? How can I make my waters less muddy? Get that crystalline water flow going? Because there's so much content, there's so much information, so many people trying to sell and market you things on how you can become more spiritual or awakened or upgrade your consciousness or whatever. But a lot of it isn't really good or isn't like super useful. It's like you can only do it like in a certain setting or or it's not like effective.
Yeah, the ritualization of your spiritual practice. That's what I'm always speaking about. How if you have to ritualize your experience where you tap into yourself, it can cause you issues. Because the very act of needing to like designate a time to do a certain thing can kind of keep you not wanting to tap into what you need to tap in right now because in the future I'll do it. And I mean, you even see this with everything. Like, you have your morning yoga practice at 7:30 in the morning, and like that's when you tap into your spirit. Then you have your matcha green tea, and then and you got this and that. But what happens if you just like switch up your routines and don't do that? Are you like freaking out? Are you, you know, how much do you really need your routine? What if you don't say your prayer and intentions today? Or what if like you eat fast food like I just had today? I just had Habit Burger. It's technically fast food. How much like is that voice in your mind telling you, "Oh man, all those seed oils, they're causing inflammation in all your neural pathways and disrupting your gut flora. Oh man, I'm such a dumb person. Oh, oh, oh." Like how much can you just allow it all, man? Just to and when you're at that
But
place, you don't need anything, man. Don't need anything.
yeah, that's more like what true freedom is being kind of allowed to do whatever and not let anything you do really affect you. Um,
Isn't that the goal of spirituality? Is to get to that
yeah, I
freedom?
mean, yeah, and I think a lot of people they it's like the complete opposite of that. It's like super restrictive, where it's like, oh, like yeah, oh my god, I can't eat seed oils. I I can't eat that ice cream. I can't, you know, I can't this, I can't that, I can't that. Da, 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 da. I can't wear these clothes because they have what is it, polyester in them, and those are plastics and this and that, and just it's like sounds like you can't do a lot of stuff. Like, what can you do? It just sounds like super restrictive. Sounds like you're just being fearful of everything, kind of in a way.
It reminds me of my veganism days. I was a vegan at
Yeah.
18 through 20, so we're about 2.5 years. I thought this was the answer. I was telling everyone, man, I'm a vegan every time someone met me. I'm a vegan, by the way. I'm a vegan. Hey, I take like 60 different supplements of like chlorella, spirulina, blue algae, oil, crazy. Like, I spend all my paychecks on veganism products, and my health just deteriorated more and more and more. It's like it's the same thing, you know? Chasing that perfectionism, chasing that routine, chasing that perfect set of supplements that you need to maintain your consciousness. That's why I don't really take anything anymore. Because I really did find that like almost everything is that plug-in effect to it. When you can accept within yourself that you can generate your own energy for that can sustain you, that's the freedom.